Good afternoon, and welcome to another ironic introduction to another video. I want to give a shout out to Omkar's music, potentially Omkar's music. I apologize, I don't get the phonetic with just the text, but I do the best that I can. That said, he requested that I make this video, kind of an arena grinding strategy for how to distribute points, how to juggle multiple arenas. So what I have up here is the 4-star Darkhawk basic arena. My brother's account is only 8 days old, and with the start dash tax that he paid and no other whaling besides that, he's already able to grind out 4-star basics. And that's just because in the beginner bracket and the intermediate bracket, 4-star basics are incredibly accessible. Even the 4-star features are very accessible for new players if you're willing to put the time in to arena to grind. So that said, this video is going to be fairly long, so I will have timestamps in the description below. And I apologize for not being scripted. It's tough to manage, but hopefully those timestamps help. But that said, this will be timestamp number 1. So the first things first is to determine your roster potential. And this is actually not that hard. If you have, 15, I would say 3 stars, and well, essentially you either only have like a handful of 3 stars, in which case, stick to the summoner trials and the 3-star featured. If you have an endless amount of time, you can go ahead and distribute your points in the 3-star featured. But if you're unlimited time, stick to the summoner trials. Just continue opening premium hero crystals. But if you have 15 3-stars, this is the point where you are able to really push for a 3-star featured and potentially push for a 4-star basic, depending on your point distribution. We'll discuss later whether or not you're able to push for a 4-star basic and how you would determine that just from grinding. You do need 1 day's worth of grinding points to determine that accordingly. So that said, this is the second timestamp. So second, when you're grinding arena and you're ranking up your champions accordingly, you really want to make sure that first things first, you prioritize ranking up champions for questing. No matter what you're doing, you always want to rank up your questing champions until they're at the point where you just can't rank them up anymore. So with my brother here, you can see his Stark Enhanced Spider-Man, he's gated by tier 4 basics. So at this point, he no longer needs to worry about holding on to those tier 3 techs or those tier 1 alphas, because until he gets those tier 4 basics, he's stuck on Spider-Man Stark Enhanced. Corvus Glaive here, which is a 3-star, you can see is max ranked, so now he only has to worry about dumping ISO into there, but those are his first priorities. And so essentially when you have a questing team of 5 is when you can start thinking about pushing other champions for rank ups for arena. But as you start to get farther in the game, you want to think about having an additional 3 for Alliance Quest, an additional 3 for Alliance War, and an additional 5 for Alliance Defense. That 5 for Alliance Defense is your last consideration, because as a new player for a very long time, you'll just be throwing, trash into Alliance War defense. Unfortunately, that's just kind of a result of needing so many champions in the game. But getting that initial 5 for questing is the most important part, and then eventually you want to have the 11 for the attack phases, and then 16 total when you're finally ready. And then when you're done ranking up those 16 is when you'll start ranking up points otherwise. So that said, this is the next timestamp. And so this is going to be how should you rank up champions for arena. So the way I would rank up champions for arena is you are free to rank up 4 stars and 3 stars for maximum points in the higher tier bracket arenas. But once you hit 5 stars is where you kind of want to jungle those. But if you're at 5 stars, I'm going to make the assumption that you are closer towards the veteran style of player, and so this video isn't for you. So I'm going to exclude 5-star consideration just because it kind of makes the math complicated, and I don't have the time to go into that. So just under the assumption that you have 4 stars, prioritize ranking those to at least rank 2, just to make sure you are getting the max amount of points out of those, as well as making those fights easy. And if you can't get them to rank 2 because of upgrade materials, I understand, at least bring them up to level 10. And this goes the same for most of your 3 stars. So as far as prioritizing in the arena grind with rank ups, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get to 15 level 10 3 stars minimum. And once you have 15 3 stars level 10, you're going to want to drop down to the 2 stars, and you're going to want to get somewhere between 6 and 9 minimum. And then from there, the way you rank up will be determined by how you grind for arena. So if you are grinding for points in the arena, you can bring the 2 stars up to 12. I found 12 to 15 is all you need to really push here. And then you can slowly start rank 2 max leveling them. And you're going to want to do that 3 at a time. Like once you have the upgrade materials to bring 3 up at a time, do it that way just to keep the hero rating similar, as well as that's how you can push your infinite streak in the long run. And don't go higher than rank 2 until you're farther, your veteran status, because rank 2 max level is all you need in order to use a 2-star to push infinite streak in the arena. As well as, when you're developing your 3 stars, once they're rank 1 level 10 and you have 15, you can then go rank 2 level 20 them. Because again, with the 3 stars and the 3-star featured arena, you only need them rank 2 max level in order to set the infinite streak up there as well. Do keep in mind these are going to be hard fights, but it is very possible just by getting very good with dodging and parrying, and it's going to be good practice for you. And once you have the infinite streak set up, you won't have to worry as much about the fights. And then once you have, rank 2 maxed up, you're going to want to start ranking up, more champions and max leveling them up as well. Again, just to that 2-star mark. And then as for 4 stars, if you're a beginner/intermediate player, you probably can't set up a infinite streak there, so you won't be doing that. So again, just get them to at least level 10 and then rank up the ones that are worth ranking up as far as questing. That said, there's 2 considerations I want to comment on here is time, right? It really depends on how much time you have / how your time distribution works for this game. So let's say you have an unlimited amount of logins, but your total amount of time played is very limited. So like situations for this might be like if you're a student in school. So what you're going to want to do is maximize time efficiency, and the way you're going to do that is you're going to prioritize rank 2 max leveling your 3 stars so that you can set up an infinite streak, and then it just becomes a matter of your infinite streak becoming faster, and kind of determine how many champions you can run through the infinite streak before you need to log off and go do something else. In that case, like maybe you can only push 15 champions through the 3-star featured at a time. Well, then once you've ranked 2 to your 3 stars, 15 of them, you're going to want to rank 3 them, and then maybe even max rank them. But honestly, by the time you're max rank them, you'll be pushing into the 4-star basic anyways. And so that's the consideration there. But if you are instead, let's say, have a large amount of time, like a time block, but you can only play over the course of, say, 4 hours because you work and have dinner and stuff like that, well, then what you're going to want to do is you're actually going to say, screw rank 2ing my champions. I'm going to invest my ISO in bringing them all to level 10, as many as level 10 as possible across the board, starting at the top, going your way down, as you start getting cut off, and then upgrading, just your questing champions for there. Because when you have a block of time but not a lot of resets, it's really just a matter of getting as many points out of the champions you have as possible. So that's ranking up for the arena. This next rule is really important. Timestamp here is the 40% rule. So, excuse me. What you're going to want to do is this 40% rule is how I would use point distribution in determining how many points you can get in the arena and whether or not a champion is accessible for you. So what you're going to do is you're going to reasonably make the assumption, can I actually push for a 4-star basic? And you should probably know this as a new player, but if you don't, go ahead and dump all of your points into the 4-star basic just to give it a shot. Or if you're pushing for a 4-star featured, you can do this there as well. But what you're going to do is you're going to grind as hard as you possibly can on day 1. Wake up early, do a rotation. Break at work, don't get in trouble at work, but if you have like a 15-minute assigned break, grind there. Get home, do a rotation right when you get home before you eat, and make sure you get as many resets as you can, maybe stay up a little late. And then once day 1 is over, you're going to go to sleep. Take the amount of points that you have, and you are going to multiply it by 2.5. So the reason I call it the 40% rule, it is the assumption that you will get 40% of your arena points on day 1. So let's say that you're pushing for Darkhawk here, and day 1 you get 200 and well, let's make the number easy. Let's say you get 300,000 points in the Darkhawk arena day 1. Multiplying that by 2.5, you have access to 750,000 points. At 750,000 points, you could potentially get Darkhawk. So with that in mind, I would say, well, just distribute and only focus the Darkhawk arena first until your champions are locked out, and then drop down to other arenas and distribute your points. Another scenario is, let's say you're pushing for the 4-star featured Medusa, and you go in and day one you get 200,000 points. 200,000 points multiplied by 2.5 is only 500,000 points, and at 500,000 points, you're just not going to be able to get Medusa. So you're actually just better off taking those points and distributing them to the basic arena instead. And if you have the time where you are still able to get Darkhawk, like you already know you can do that, make sure you grab like these minimum easy milestones before it starts scaling. So probably just this first one, and then a little bit extra just to get that minimum rank reward, whatever it happens to be for you, and then drop your points down. And so this 40% rule is what you use to determine your maximum amount of points within reason. This really accommodates for life hazards, sleeping in, maybe missing an arena step for any form or reason. And it's a really good way to prevent you from being disappointed in the long run. The only reason I would ignore this 40% rule is if you know you have like 3 days off, in which case what you're going to do is you're going to grind from noon to noon, and right before noon you're going to determine your points, and you're going to take that number of points and multiply it by just a flat 3, right? That's 3 days worth of points. But most likely the 40% rule is what you're going to go off of. This next timestamp here, this is important for groundwork, just kind of like having a base understanding, is determine cutoff estimates. If you are in the beginner or the intermediate bracket, use crafty grinding. There are other resources out there. I just haven't found any that are reliable. Feel free to look to Reddit. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of information on cutoff estimates here, so it's very, very gamble. And that's just an unfortunate reality. But once you you mostly just have to find out yourself, like maybe push this arena for Medusa and you go, okay, I know 700,000 wasn't enough, so next time I'll come back and I'll put 950,000 in, and I won't come back to the arena until I can put, you know, an extra 3 champions into that arena. And unfortunately, that's really the only way to do this, because the point cutoffs aren't consistent until you hit veteran bracket. But you can get a rough idea just from Crafty Grinding's videos. They're not perfect, but that's just due to the volatility of the beginner and intermediate bracket. And actually, he does an incredibly good job, all things considered. After that, next timestamp is point distribution. So here you kind of want to recognize how milestones work. So first off, I'll say if you have more time, go top down. And if you know as a player you have less time, go bottom up as far as the arenas go. So if I jump into Summoner Trials here and I show you the rewards, for milestones, at first it's only 2,500 points, and then 5,000, which is only a 2,500 point increase, and then here from 5,000 to 3,000, you see it's a 25,000 point increase, and then it stables off at 30,000 points per. This is actually a consistent amount of fights if you're using 2 stars, right? So only using 2 stars, you can easily get this with somewhere between 9 and 15 2 stars. You can push these milestones within like 1 to 2 rotations, depending on how many of those champions you have. So 9 to 15, right? But if you move to the 3-star featured, and we look at these milestone cutoffs, and we're going to go up to where it starts to stabilize. So here it's stabilized between 80,000, and then the milestones are always 80,000 apart. Same thing here. If you have ranked up 9 to 15 champions, this is only 1 to 2 rotations worth of ×3 multiplier champions. So in that regard, you can easily determine where your point distribution is, and you would prioritize, like, let's say you're pushing for the 4-star basic and you only have 3 4-stars, right? Well, then I would advise prioritizing your 3-star featured arena and then going up to the 4-star basic arena, unless you know you have a larger degree of time and you can comfortably push for points. Again, use the 40% rule to determine this. But assuming you only have 2 to 3 hours to play, you would prioritize the 3-star featured because you can get more out of your 3-star champions here. So as far as champion distribution, when you're only going for milestones, essentially what you want to do is you want to use the highest star rated champion in the arena that's related. So if you have 4-star champions, don't bring those to the 4-star featured. Keep them only in the 4-star basic. If you have 3-star champions, don't bring them to the 4-star basic. Bring them to the 3-star featured, 2 stars to summoner trials. And again, this is just under the assumption that you did the 40% rule, found out you couldn't go for champions, so this is how you're going to distribute your points instead to maximum milestones. And towards the end, start like determining what milestones you'll still be able to hit, kind of cut off there just to save yourself some time and effort. That way you don't like bubble out on a milestone and miss out on that base reward. Next timestamp here is how to use a minimum number of champs for maximum points. So if you have somewhere between 9 and 15 of a champion pool, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to start bottom up, right? So if you only have 9 champions, you'll bring your lowest 3, and then your middle 3, and then your top 3. And then you're going to wait 2 hours, and you're actually going to wait for all 9 champions to reset, because then, again, you're going to go bottom 3, middle 3, top 3. And then you'll be at a ×3 multiplier, and then on reset you'll go top 3, middle 3, bottom 3, and you'll keep doing top 3, middle 3, bottom 3 until you lose your streak. And then once you lose your streak, you will again go bottom 3, middle 3, top 3, bottom 3, middle 3, top 3 until you hit your streak again, and then you'll go back down. And essentially you just keep going up, down, or depending on how many champions you have. And the reason you do this is it's worth waiting an extra 5 to 10 minutes on all of your champions to reset if you only have 9 champions. It's not even that long if you push the fights quicker. But it's worth waiting that extra 5 minutes for the increase in point efficiency per champion, because you'll be able to push higher milestones if you're getting more points out of your higher hero rated champions. It's not a lot, but it's worth it. Another thing is with minimum champions, you're going to want to take the matchups in the multipliers 1 to 3 before the fights get consistently harder. You're going to want to take the higher hero rated champion fights. Only if you could actually win those, but you should be able to, because you are going to get more points for defeating higher rated champions. And again, when you only have a minimum pool, there's really not a lot of points available to you. So you want to make sure you get the most out of every fight. But once you hit that ×3 multiplier, it's more important to hold that streak for as long as possible. So go ahead and just take the lowest rated fight there. Next up, timestamp here, is preparing arenas for maximum points. And so when I say that, when you're pushing for, let's say, the Darkhawk arena, and you have 3 4-star champions and let's say 6 ranked up 3 stars, but you have plenty of 3 stars beyond that. Let's say you're closing towards the end of your rotation. You've got maybe like 21 champions left, and you're sitting on a ×3 multiplier. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to actually intentionally lose 3 fights, right? And then rebuild your multiplier up to 3, so that when your rotation resets and you're coming in with your top champions, you're getting ×3 multiplier on your top champions. And then you can go down and reset again towards the end of your rotation, and rebuild up your multiplier again there as well. So the rule of thumb is, including the intentional loss round, in order to lose and then rebuild your multiplier up, you need 18 champions. So when you are approaching the end of your roster and you have 18 champions left, do your intentional loss, rebuild your streak, and this way you get the most amount of points out of your top champions. And this is just because you're going to lose the streak eventually, and you don't want to lose the streak while you're pushing your higher champions, and you get that decreased point value there. Next timestamp here is time versus point efficiency. So the reason I say this is when you do the 3-star featured and the summoner trials, it is incredibly easy to set up infinite streaks here. But the thing is, with infinite streaks, you get less points per champion. Now, this doesn't matter if you have an infinite amount of time. But when you don't have an infinite amount of time, or you have a limited roster, you instead want to push death matches where you get less points, but so long as you're winning 2 out of 3 fights, you get more points, roughly on average, especially if you're winning all 3 fights. And in these lower tier brackets, it's much easier to win the fights because you're significantly less likely to get one shot by a special. And then my last tip here is like when to use point boosters. So point boosters really only work for the 3-star champions, and essentially it is about a 1.3 multiplier for the points you have. But you're not going to have enough point boosters to boost through all 3 days for all of your champions. So what you're going to want to do is only use point boosters on your top champions that are ranked up. And you're only going to want to use them when you are securing a champion. Like, let's say the cutoff is 600,000, you did your 40% rule, and you determined, okay, if the cutoff is 600,000, I can push 610,000 on a 40% rule, right? That means you can go for that champion. I would instead then use point boosters on day 3 to secure up to like 660,000 and make sure you get that champion for sure. The cutoff might be lower, but now you've used the point boosters efficiently. So that said, make sure that, you know, arena is like your second or third to last stop in the game, just because when you're a beginner / an intermediate player, it's much more important to efficiently use your energy, efficiently push event and story questing. But hopefully this information provides some help to you out there. This video, as always, has gone on longer than it needs to, and I will talk to you later.